Welcome to part 6 of my 2026 version of my building the Black Pearl. This is at least the third Black Pearl that I've built as I continue to learn new techniques and improvements in building. You can see I've done some things to the ship. This episode will cover planking the main deck and some work that I did on the back that was not included in the kit. Finished some wiring. I have planned out how I'm going to end the wiring. I have one that I'm going to try to take up the main mast and put a lantern on the mast, or on the crow's nest there. I had mentioned before that I was considering painting this first layer of planking black. I went ahead and stained it. In hindsight, I wish I would have painted it black. There's a couple areas on the ship that I did test not using anything, and then also a section that I did using black paint, water-based paint, and I think that worked the best. So I have some unique techniques that I use to make the deck and the planks kind of stand out. So that's what I'll cover in this episode. I hope you find it useful and somewhat enjoyable. I hope you'll join me as my journey continues in 2026 and my building the Black Pearl Golden Edition. I have some scraps of hard maple, so I took a piece of that and have thinned it down quite a ways. I'm going to make it to fit back here. Instead of putting the underlayment of these planks all the way across back here, I will just make that fit and shape it. I think that'll work much better and it'll be easier to do. Then the final layer of walnut planking will go on top of this. I placed it in this cup of hot water. I'll let it soak for a while, and then I'll try and shape it into the curvature that I need. This is, and actually it started curving on its own in the hot water. I heated it up a little bit with a soldering iron, but not much at all. And it's going to fit just perfectly. I'm going to glue it on, and then I will cut it and sand it to fit on the edges. Here's that finished piece, and I'm very, very pleased and impressed with myself how well it fits. That will give me a very smooth contour on the back of the ship for the final planking. I've got all this sanded, very smooth, ready to go. These are the black walnut pieces. This is going to be the deck and the outer hull, and these are some trim pieces, all nice black walnut. However, I would recommend as soon as you get your kit, go to the black walnut, and there's tape that leaves a residue. You can see it there. So I'm gonna have to remember to turn this so that that tape mark is on the inside where it doesn't show. Practically all of them have it. It'll be on the outsides of some. I think you can probably see the discoloration there. That's also true for these strips. It had the same tape on it. It's just something to be aware of, and the sooner you get it off, the better. I may take some alcohol rub and see if that will bring the adhesive out, but also just remember to turn that inward so it doesn't show. Next, I've got a very labor-intensive project for myself with the black walnut. These very thin strips. I'm going to attempt to band them together in small groups, and I want to make the edges black. I'll use a permanent black marker so that when it goes on the ship, it will define between the planks. So we'll see how that turns out when I figure out how I'm going to band them together and rub that marker over them. I've tried a few things. I tried putting the planks between two boards and clamping them together and trying to do, like a half-inch grouping. Did not work real well, so I'm going back to what I've done in the past. This is a permanent black marker. I did take a sharp edge and made just a little cut right there, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, if that. I want to be a little more specific on the marker. This is a Sharpie permanent marker that is a chisel tip. So it's not pointed. You can see it was kind of an angle, and I cut that slit right about there. And that is where I will pass this through. I put this in a vise. Every once in a while I can just tweak it a little bit and it'll force more of the permanent marker to the tip. And so I just take one at a time, find that little slit, and slowly pull it through. And you can change speed based on how dark you want it to be. It'll absorb more. What you want is just the edge to have a hint of black. And by edge, I don't mean this edge. I mean the edge, along the top. Just a hint so it will pop when you get them together on the deck. This will be time consuming, but model ship making is not really something that you do for the finished product, although you will appreciate it. It's really the journey that you're taking. So take your time, decide if you want to do this the way I'm doing it, or just leave it. And you can see this is, I have a little bit that went over. That actually looks really good on the ship. It just looks like a tar overlap or something. By time consuming, I'm not sure how many of these there are, but it's in the couple hundred probably. So this is going to take me a while, but I think it's well worth it in the end. I've been working on my technique and I've improved it greatly. Put on a pair of cloth gloves, put some masking tape on the index finger and the thumb, because this actually, even though it feels smooth, it's a little splintery on the edges and you need it to slide smoothly. So now, find my little groove on there, do the tip, and now I can pull it through relatively rapidly. Now I'll do the other side. And when I do the other side, I do it with the same edge facing upwards because I want it consistent, because I'm not sure what the underside looks like. So this way I can see what's going to be the top side on the ship. I'm going to stain the real thin walnut planks, and my favorite color of stain is semi-transparent red mahogany number 225 made by Minwax. And I choose it, I know it says red, but when you put it on it gets very, very dark, especially with the walnut. I put some on a cloth on this metal tray. I put a couple of rounds of, that's just masking tape, because if you do get a splinter off of one of these, which normally you don't, but if you do, it'd be very sharp. I have had it happen. So I just put that on there because I will slide this across the stain. I decide which side to stain. You can see there's some white residue on this side on this one, so I will stain the other side. And that way this will be glued to the ship at some point. I don't know if you can see the thin black line on both sides where I used the marker. And all I do, I also have paper towels off to my right. And I will tap this down, make sure it coats the first part. Push down, somewhat firm, and then just slowly drag this across that pad that is soaked with stain. Then I'll turn it over and make sure it's covered. And I missed a little spot right through here, so I'll take that through there again. I don't care that this side does not have stain, because it's going to get glued to the ship. And right away, I will go ahead and wipe the stain off. Normally 1 or 2 passes, sometimes 3. And that's the side that will be exposed, and then this side will be glued. I have hundreds of them to do. I'm not going to show me doing them all. I do look at each one. I look at both sides and I decide, okay, which is the nicer looking side. And if it's, you know, some imperfections, sometimes that's good. So sometimes I'll choose that side. Then some look very neatly done and I'll pick them. It varies on just however I feel at that moment. I have several of the planks stained, and I want to point out that I only stain one side. The other will have a little bit of overlap from time to time. When it comes to planking, you'll need to think ahead of what should be done first. And I point that out. So this little front section here, I put those on because when I do these planks, I want the plank to cover up that edge. And I'll sand this off. You can see there's a little overlap there. I will sand that off. So when I plank and you're looking at this angle, you won't see that edge. That will be the same thing on the rear of the ship. You'll want this planked first, so when these planks slide down, they'll cover that seam. This part of the deck I put stain on. When I put it on, I wipe it off right away because this is an oil-based stain and I don't want it to seal the wood because supposedly the glue will not stick that well. I've stained before, I've never had a problem, but just in case. This part up here, I took water-based, just regular paint. A lot of times I use Folk Art matte, just pure black. You can maybe water it down a little bit so it's thin, and just a thin coat, and then I wipe it off right away. Being water-based, I think then that might work better. So everything's sticking now just fine. When I put the planks on, I will put the side that goes up, I'll turn it over, and I'll line up what I need. In this case, because this one overlaps just slightly onto this part that juts out, so I will go to the furthest part out, and that's where I'm going to put my cut mark. And I've got a chop tool that will cut that off. Here's that piece. This is the side I want up. This is the side that doesn't have much stain on it. And I normally do this on the workbench, but I'll just put a light coat of wood glue because you don't want it oozing out if you can help it. And if I get too much, I'll just take my finger, draw it off a little bit, and then just wipe my finger on my workbench paper. When I put it down, I try and put it this side of the plank it's going to rest on just a tiny little bit so that I can slide it towards the plank, and that reduces the glue from coming up between the planks. Sometimes I've been known to accidentally overlap them a little bit, but I have a little gap. I don't know if you can see. Right here, there's a little gap. But the advantage of painting this black or even staining it, you'll hardly can notice that. And it's a pirate ship. It would have, you know, uneven boards. Then you can see there's uneven edges here. I will come back after it's good and dry, 24 hours, and I will cut that square to the shape it's supposed to be. Same thing with this mast hole. I will cut those. I don't want to do it now because it hasn't had enough time to dry. A moment ago, I recorded taking the heat gun, heating this plank up and removing it. This is where that gap was, and I could tell. Remember I said that the one was overlapping? That was the problem. So I heated it up with heat gun. Unfortunately, I didn't really click the record button, and it came out, and now I put it into place. The gap is gone. It was a little stubborn when I used the heat gun, it twisted this plank a little bit. I think it's going to stay just fine. It's pretty flat now. I'm just going to put a piece of painter's tape on that, push it down, and leave that on there till it dries. That was going to drive me crazy. I know I mentioned it earlier that it would be okay. It would be okay, but I'm to the point in making the black pearl, I've made it enough times that I didn't want to have that little error. I'm going to paint this black. I'm really going to use water-based paint and just wipe it on so it does the bare minimum amount of coverage, because I want the glue to stick pretty well. But I also want that black surface, because if you look back here, this is the one where I tested it and I did not stain or paint this, and you can see the white wood through the cracks. I don't want that. Now I will fix that somehow. I'll probably take some stain in a real small brush and soak some stain in there, or something dark. Could be paint, or even a very fine tipped permanent marker, and get in between the crack and cover those. I tested it back there, so I'm not happy with it. That's why I went back to just doing a light coating of stain. I have the main deck, foredeck, and the back planking on. I'm debating about taking a very 2000 grit sanding stick and just wiping over it a little bit. That way if there's any glue residue on top, it'll kind of take it off, I think. And I may put another coat of stain on, I may not. What I traditionally do is seal the wood with tung oil. It gives it a very nice finish, but in the past I've waited until I had all the components on the ship and tried to brush it on in different ways, and it wasn't very easy. I'm thinking about putting the tung oil on this, giving it a little sheen, a little polishing. Then I'll probably have to secure things a little better, because once you put that on, then it seals the wood and glue will not stick very well. So I'm just debating on that. You'll see when I get to that point. I still will put some planking on these side walls here. And I've started some back here. Just have some clamps there to hold them on tighter. Next, I will want to put them on the back of the ship, because I want that to go on first, so when I bring the planks around here, it'll cover that seam. In hindsight, I wish I would have done what I said I was going to do, and that would be do a black coating on this part of the deck. I did black, and any cracks or anything just looks like the tar between the planks, so I'm going to try that more often. I finished putting the outer layer of planking on the back of the ship. You can see I painted this surface black. You can see it's black here where I did not put any planks. And then down where I left bare wood, you can see those white lines, which I don't like, but that's the only place I have them. I'll correct that later. Put some mirrors in place. This piece will fit right here. And because that captain's quarters is faked, then I'll have two lanterns back here, and they'll kind of reflect different angles. I'll probably put another section mirror above those. These edges have not been finished. I'll trim that off after the glue completely dries. Same thing with the rounded back of the ship. All that excess will be trimmed off. I've been working on the back lights. What I've done is I've put the LEDs close to these posts, and then the mirrors in the background give it depth. And then if you step over to an angle, it appears like there's more lanterns than what there really are. When I get the window panes in place, then it won't be as clear. You'll just see little bits of it, and it'll be dark inside there. I hope you found this episode useful and maybe enjoyable, and I hope maybe you learned some things from me. I keep learning every single day. That's an important part of model shipbuilding, is to continue to learn, continue to use your brain, it does so many things for someone that's retired, as far as you're using your fine motor skills and your brain to think things through. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm learning as I go, and I think I've learned some better techniques than any of the ships I've built before. I will continue on from here. I have the planking to do on the outside of the ship. I'm going to use the same technique on the final outside layer as I did for this first layer, and I hope that that makes it go a lot smoother. This is Boiler Dan 1, and as always, thanks for watching.